Hi, I'm David Manti, and welcome to a new episode of the Today in Manufacturing podcast. With me this week are Andy Zoll and Anna Wells. We each have more than 15 years of experience covering the manufacturing and industrial distribution industries. Every week, we take the 5 most popular stories on our websites and discuss the implications they have on the industry going forward. But before we get started, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You can also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. If you want to email the podcast, you can reach any of us at Andy, David, or Anna at IEN.com with email the podcast in the subject line. You can also subscribe to us on YouTube at IEN Magazine, so you can join us when we go live every Thursday. You can also subscribe to our daily newsletter. Make sure you get it delivered to that inbox first. Anna, how you doing this week?
Good. I was excited we got started on time. The video guys were just like, we're going to just press record.
Yeah.
And you guys are going to start talking. We're like, okay.
Yeah, it's just like great banter. You have 30 seconds.
Get to it.
Yeah. No, it's good. And I feel sorry for the people that have gotten so used to waiting till like 10:15 after. They're going to like come in and be like, they're on the second story? That's so unlike them.
Sorry about that, everyone.
Andy, thank you again for joining us this week, man. It's good to see you.
Good to see you guys. I feel like we won't even be close to the second story 15 minutes in, but there's a first time for everything. We'll see.
Not at that rate.
Well, you know. No. We'll see how it goes.
So how are you feeling?
Good. I almost forgot to eat lunch before doing this, which would have been interesting for other reasons. Just a little low blood sugar over here, but we got it, so we're feeling good. I'm ready to go.
Just like right at the end. Next story.
Yep. What else we got?
Next story. Andy needs a Snickers. I went the other way and ate too much too close to the podcast, and now I'm just like, let's get through this.
All
Coffee
right.
will fix it.
Yeah, a slouch.
All right. Well, before we get started with our first story this week, we have a word from our new sponsor, Sikich. This week's episode is brought to you by Sikich. Supply chain challenges like inventory shortages and late deliveries from suppliers have exposed weaknesses, shrinking profits for 93% of companies in the past 5 years. We are at a turning point. Businesses can modernize their supply chain management, or they can scramble to survive when something goes wrong. Which one sounds better to you? This new report, 7 key areas for modernizing distribution, will help you unlock 7 key areas of supply chain management that enterprises can leverage to retain their market share and stay ahead of disruptions. Download it now. There is a link in the live chat. You can also catch it in the description below the video. Our first story this week, Rolls-Royce spends year developing rainbow paint for single client. Rolls-Royce sells exclusivity. It markets greatness. And the company recently showed off a new paint that is one of one. Rolls-Royce has taken on a bespoke commission for a buyer only referred to as, quote, a significant client from the United States. Spectre, the ultra-luxury electric Super Coupe, will be coated with a holographic paint finish called Luna Flare. The finish was inspired by a lunar halo, quote, where light refracts from ice particles in cirrus clouds, like a prism. The phenomenon creates a colorful visual light around the moon. Just a beautiful little circle of light around the moon. The paint is designed to create a, quote, captivating rainbow effect. The paint finish took more than a year to develop. Engineers tinkered with various chemistries and layering before settling on a final approach. The final process includes an application of 7 layers, including a specially formulated pearlescent coat infused with fine flakes of magnesium fluoride and aluminum. The metallic effect is low light, serves as a contrast to the rainbow Technicolor visual in the bright sunlight. Sounds beautiful, and I bet you can't wait to see it. Well, that's likely never going to happen, because they only made one Spectre Luna Flare, and that's it. Unless this goes super viral, of course, because, as we know, no automaker ever has been able to turn away from a sure thing. Anna, what do you think of this rainbow paint? Is it too bright? And could we do another Luna Flare. Oh, yeah, that's the one.
I mean, if they want, Rolls-Royce, if you're watching, if you want us to do the VO for your commercial for this paint that you've already sold
For the one,
to one person,
Yeah.
not going to be very effective marketing. Okay. This story is so interesting. I'm really, really super curious about who this one significant client is from the United States. I hope that comes out at some point.
Any guesses?
My only guess was Jay Leno, just because he's like the car guy that has all the money. I don't know.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
But I don't know.
I feel like our go-to celebrity in the office is Brad Pitt, so that's just what I automatically think. I just imagine Brad Pitt tooling around in this rainbow-painted Luna Flare Rolls-Royce, and it makes me happy.
I feel like it'd have to be somebody a little more flamboyant than Jay Leno. I mean, it could be, but
you think it's okay?
I don't.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to know, and there's probably quite a few quiet billionaires out there that are just doing their thing, driving Rolls Royces.
Man, what a luxury it is to have quiet billionaires in this country.
To just be like,
I mean, that's the way to play it. You don't want
on
to be
the down low, a billionaire. This is not an on the down low vehicle to drive, though.
No,
a rainbow car. Anyway, I think it's funny. It was interesting to see the process, what they did. Obviously, bespoke and customized product development is not the type of business that many companies, many manufacturers undertake, right? Mm-hmm. You have to be a niche seller with a very niche market of high-end buyers, like Rolls-Royce. Mm-hmm. So how are they doing financially in an era of soft financial reports, strange circumstances for the business environment from automotive? That was my first question here. Like, can they do this, and how are they doing? So I looked at their 2023 year-end report, and it sounds like they're actually doing quite well. They just released the details on this in August, so this is pretty fresh info. They said that their motor cars division showed strong sales, strong demand, but they also said that bespoke commissions were at record levels in 2023, both by volume and value, and saying it also underlines the company's position within the luxury sector, offering clients opportunities for self-expression and personalizations that they cannot find anywhere else. So even luxury firms like Rolls-Royce, which has been around since 1904, they have to carve out a niche in a competitive market. So if you look at their business model, Rolls-Royce sells fewer than 10,000 vehicles per year. That's the plan, and it always has been. The exclusivity is part of their selling point. So it's not like you can just make more money when you want to by selling more vehicles. That kind of like kneecaps them, right? So besides raising the price, there has to be something else that you can do to grow. And for this company, I think it's kind of doubling down on that exclusivity. And what's more exclusive and exciting than your own paint color that nobody else in the world will ever have? Mm-hmm. So I think it's a smart way to get the ultra wealthy to part with a little bit more of their money. I'll just add one more piece here that I found interesting. So in this annual report that detailed 2023, which was just released in August, mind you, the company's leaders said that it was especially encouraging to see the enormous interest in and demand for the Spectre, supporting the decision to adopt a bold all-electric strategy for future model development and production. So it sounds like at least ultra wealthy buyers like this electric car that Rolls-Royce is producing for what it's worth.
Well, isn't that the story of a recession, unspoken or not, or a downturn? Is that, for 95 to 99% of us, we're all taking it in the teeth, and then everyone else is just like, I think I'll get the only Rolls-Royce there is.
Are you taking it in the teeth?
I mean, it hasn't been great. When we're worrying about the price of bread and other, our grocery bill essentially doubling for getting the same thing, and you're making sacrifices otherwise, that other people are able to be like, what if I was able to make my own paint
like
that combines rainbows and the moon?
And the moon.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's a tale of two different stories economically right now.
Sometimes money is just so heavy in your pocket. You got to get rid of it somehow.
Yeah.
Come up with a way.
And Rolls-Royce is just like, we have an idea for you. Mm-hmm. Andy, I guess, this is one of the perks of extreme wealth, right? You have access to a premium automaker for your own pet projects, and it might actually be cheaper to like vacation to the moon than actually buy this car.
Yeah, you not only pay this company's engineers to develop this thing just for you, but presumably pay them to not make it for anybody else. Is that part of the price tag here?
Well, that's what I was thinking too, is like any custom product anywhere in manufacturing, so often it winds up on the shelf.
Yeah.
And so I was wondering if that was part of it too, where and maybe they buy the rights, the ownership of this paint.
I know they describe it as kind of rainbow Technicolor. I don't know. That didn't strike me that way from the footage I saw.
Yeah. It was still pretty.
It was. It's very beautiful. But when you picture that in that sort of terminology, you expect like the Roy G. Biv like color spectrum like across the car, and that's not really what's happening here.
Yeah.
I also thought of John Lennon's Rolls-Royce, if you guys have ever seen that. But this is more subtle than both of those things. I was curious if there were any other maybe more practical applications for this kind of prism effect in coatings or paint, be they aesthetic or industrial or whatever. But I'm, a writer and not an engineer, so I didn't take it very far. If you guys have any guesses, feel free to throw them out into the world. But
engineers will find a way.
Yeah, I figured. If there's that much money burning a hole in your pocket, though, I mean, just buy like an Acura and get a tax write-off for a donation or something like. I don't know. It just seems
buy an Acura.
and if you're going to buy this, why not tell everybody you bought it?
Yeah,
because people are going to figure it out eventually. You'd think, right?
Oh, I think that is a very strategic decision to put in the press release. Like, and you know what? Could we just keep
just
my name
hold off
out of
on
this?
that? Yeah, keep it under wraps for a
Because
little bit.
I'd like to wait for the next news cycle and then we can drop it.
Okay.
Really get more bang for their buck. The gross example of wealth aside, I do think it's incredible. I love it when engineering is also an art. And I know that a lot of times we talk about these projects like it's a waste of engineering resources, but like it's still okay to dare to dream.
It could. I mean, you never know. It could. Someone else could see this and be like, "Hey, I bet I could use this for this other thing," and you never know.
You never know.
Yeah.
This is going to be what we have to put on the satellites to better communicate with the aliens.
Yeah.
Most likely.
Yeah. Or make a building that looks cool.
Yeah, make a building less likely to get flown into by birds.
Sure.
Yeah,
there you go.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe a turbine that stops killing eagles. Who knows?
You never know.
Anna, I do also like that, you mentioned it. This is a commission. Rolls-Royce has a bespoke design team. And I mean, this has to also be tied to marketing, right? Because this is not only an incredible project that you're likely being paid handsomely, but what you are going to get on the back end in terms of marketing is also incredible.
Well, they have to put this out there too for people to understand, like you can have, sole share of voice with the design team at Rolls-Royce. Like you can, have a captive audience and just lay out your idea and maybe they'll do it if you have enough money. You just got to reach that one billionaire with the right message. And this is probably it.
Or you can have a Cybertruck.
You could do that.
I mean, you could probably get both if we're being honest here.
Yeah, I feel like they didn't have to make a sacrifice as to which one.
Yeah.
It did make me go down this weird rabbit hole of, I just encourage anyone to search one-of-one cars because there are some cool things out there. The one in particular that stood out to me was the Maserati Birdcage 75th Pininfarina. So Maserati built this birdcage in 2005, and I don't know if you can pull it up. I have it linked. They built it in 2005 to celebrate the design studio's 75th birthday. It was a collaboration with Motorola and used 3D rendering technology to really reduce the development time. They developed it in just 2 months. This thing has a one-piece canopy, so instead of doors, the driver lifts the roof up in one piece to get in and out of the car. It really reminded me of kind of the Homer Simpson car, just the bubble.
Oh, sure.
Like the person in a bubble.
Classic.
And I don't know, there are a lot of really cool one-of-one cars out there. I don't think that the Birdcage in particular, I think that one's still at Maserati. I don't know that anyone bought that one, but there are just a lot of cool things out there. And this is what this thing looks like. It's you kind of see the Motorola design inspiration there, but it's also, that's a lot of roof to pick up to get out. You know?
Yeah, I assume you just click a button,
pop
though,
it.
right? Yeah.
Oh, no, it's definitely not automated. This person needs to heave this incredibly heavy piece of glass. Just like, well, it was just a concept, man. We're not going to put all the hydraulics in there.
Yeah.
No, I don't know, but it's cool. And hey, if you're looking to burn some time while you're preparing for a 2:00 deadline, go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Our next most popular story, and we nail it. Yeah, second story, 15 minutes 40 seconds in.
Good call.
It's almost like we've done this 190 times. Okay, our next most popular story. More than 90,000 Georgia residents sheltering after chemical plant fire. On Monday, some 90,000 residents east of Atlanta were told to shelter in place, and businesses were told to remain closed, a day after a fire at the BioLab chemical plant in Conyers, Georgia. The EPA's air quality surveys found chlorine in the air, so authorities told people to stay shut in with the AC off and the windows and doors shut. About 17,000 other people were able to evacuate the area. The fire started when a sprinkler head malfunctioned around 5 a.m. Sunday morning. Water mixed with a water-reactive chemical that produced a giant orange and black chemical plume. No injuries have been reported yet, though some employees were inside the plant at the time of the fire. BioLab is the swimming pool and spa division of KIK Consumer Products. The shelter-in-place ended on late Monday, only to be reissued Tuesday as shifting winds pushed the chemical cloud over the neighborhood. Emergency officials recommended that residents shelter in place for 12 hours overnight until Friday. Anyone with, quote, nose, throat, or eye irritation or difficulty breathing were told to call a Georgia Poison Center hotline. Rockdale County Board of Commissioners Chairman Oz Nesbitt said, quote, if you don't have to be outside, stay home. Real vote of confidence there for everyone. Residents are angry, and for a number of reasons. But one of their biggest problems is that they still don't know what products are burning. Andy, just another shocking lack of clarity during a chemical accident.
So this happened very early on Sunday morning. We're recording this Thursday afternoon. Who knows what the situation will be when it goes out in our newsletters next week. It's hard to say, but there's been very little so far in the way of answers about why this happened, and really from both the company and public officials about what the danger actually might be. They're saying, it's chlorine and you can smell that in small doses. It's not harmful, but there's also hundreds of people who've called the Poison Control Center reporting respiratory issues, that sort of thing. So one article I read about this quoted an expert saying that someone who I think had looked into the Norfolk Southern train derailment in Ohio said these aren't, obviously it's lingering for days, but it could, depending on what these chemicals actually are and where they end up in the storm drains, what have you, this could linger far beyond weeks, months, what have you. So it's tough to say at this stage what we're dealing with, and that's probably for everyone, and that's the source of these people who live here, obviously their complaints, but it's the plume is still there. I think it's still chemicals are still billowing as we speak. There's reports that shifting winds are going to blow this toward Atlanta over, I think, starting today.
Yeah.
So it's just a real mess, and I think, as we'll get into a little bit, this is not the first time this has happened at this facility, and there are already calls for it to be shut down completely. So it's not looking great for them in the short term, though that should be the least of our concerns at this point. Right.
And I mean, coming off the Norfolk Southern accident, we saw that, it stretched 37 states. So I don't know. I think that we rightfully have a lack of trust in authorities when it comes to this. I don't know what you think, Anna, but the DeKalb Emergency Management Authorities said the air pollution was, quote, unlikely to cause harm to most people. But I don't think we have any reason to give anyone the benefit of the doubt anymore. Like, especially with the ongoing fallout that we've seen with Norfolk Southern. I mean, when you say, like, on the bright side, that what's worse is that it's chlorine, so it's like stinky but not deadly. I don't know. It's just, maybe it's actually good that you can smell it, so that way people are actually aware of there is a chemical in there that they're breathing, rather than Norfolk Southern or stuff where it doesn't have a smell or a scent, maybe people get a better understanding of how far-reaching this truly is.
Yeah, maybe, but I still, when I read both of these reports, I had a lot of concerns about what felt like a very muddied rollout of the instructions of what people were supposed to do after this happened. For one, as you mentioned, it was a Sunday when this first kicked off. Like, are people in their homes? Are they out? Are they taking it seriously? Are they not? Two, you have some people sheltering in place while others are evacuating. And then lastly, when the weather-related shifts took place on Tuesday, you're receiving this very, I thought, interpretable direction where these were the words. The plume is banking down. And if the cloud moves over your vicinity, please shelter in place until the cloud moves out. I'm sorry, what? Like,
run away from the cloud.
Yeah, get away from the big scary cloud.
Yeah, and like, do people know what that means? Like, are they understanding? People have like school and work and all these obligations, and then I feel like and then you mentioned this too, but they're telling, so they stopped the shelter-in-place order, then they resume the shelter-in-place order, and then they're like, well, it's actually not that bad. We're having this news conference outside. It's okay. You're smelling it. The smell is worse than it is. However, we think you should shelter from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. every night till Friday. Like, it was all over the place.
It's fine, but maybe if you can, spend half the day inside, locked up, real tight. And at the beginning of this, just be very clear. Hey, if you can get out. We'll let you know when to come back. But if you got to stay in, just lock it down, And it's, I don't know. I think when they send mixed messages like that, you're right. There's a lot of confusion. Probably a lot of people don't take it seriously. And they're out on a Sunday because it's one of their 2 days off, trying to get a little bit of R&R, breathing, a pool.
Well, yeah, chemicals. I think people are like, do I cancel my plans over this? Like, it's so confusing. And then, don't get me wrong. I think that the emergency management professionals were probably doing the absolute best that they could in this situation, but what a position to be in. And, you guys both brought up the Norfolk Southern crash, and of course my mind went there as well. And again, I'm not saying that this region did anything wrong in the way they responded to this, but I do have questions about, I think responses to these types of events are very variable based on who's there, what their training is, how much they know about this specific chemical, and what is appropriate at this moment. And with these shelter and not shelter orders being like very confusing to me, I have concerns over the level of effectiveness of the response. And I don't know if those are valid or not. It just felt very all over the place to me.
Yeah. If you live near a chemical facility, maybe have masks on hand in case you need them in a pinch.
Or don't. We're out here having this press conference, and look at us. We're
fine.
Like, literally they did that. Like, they had a press conference outside to like show that they were fine. It was very, I
guess I wish sometimes in these situations they would be a little bit more cautious than trying to, instill a sense of calm with people, like trying to make sure everyone feels okay about it. Just like, hey, you know what? We're not certain. If you could get away, it's probably good. What's the, things might go bad if you left them on the counter, but just maybe get out for a little bit.
Like, I get trying not to cause a panic, but also there's got to be a better way to go about this than all these weird CYA type messages from emergency management officials.
Well, and Zol, you alluded to it, but the terrible track record, right? Or not terrible, let's say poor track record.
It's not great.
It's not a good look. In 2004, the company had multiple warehouse explosions. People were treated for burning eyes and lungs. 2015, firefighters were injured in a fire. There were voluntary evacuations. 2020, a chemical fire shut down the interstate. They found, as a result of poorly stacked pallets, firefighters' efforts were hindered. 9 firefighters were hospitalized. My takeaway from this was maybe it's time to get BioLab to evacuate the town, and maybe in a not so voluntary fashion. I understand that there are good corporate citizens out there, and there are expectations that you should have if you live near an industrial area. But I don't know. This one to me just, I don't know.
Maybe after
it didn't
strike
pass
5,
the smell test.
Maybe after strike 5, there's time to It's time to try something else.
Do something different.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they're gonna learn a lot from this. Really, it was hard to tell. Everyone was so caught up in the moment. It was hard to tell what was going on. Just we're gonna hear the same speech that we always do. There was we did our best, but in the long run, we learned a lot of things. And you know what? We're gonna do our best moving forward. We're going to. All right. Well, our next most popular story this week: the auto industry's oldest test site turns 100. Last week, General Motors celebrated the 100-year anniversary. Anniversary? That's a thing, right? That's right. Yeah. They were having an anniversary party. Well, they actually had their 100-year anniversary party of the Milford Proving Ground, the oldest test site in the automotive industry. The Proving Ground, situated between GM's hubs in Flint, Detroit, Lansing, and Pontiac, still plays a crucial role in GM's testing and R&D operations. Back in 1923, GM bought the 1,125-acre site for $100,000. It had about 5.5 miles of test roads. The grounds now have more than 4,000 acres and 150 miles of roads, and it's probably worth a little more. Every year, GM's engineers drive 15 million miles at Milford. Initially, the site had just 2 buildings. Now, it has 170 buildings and 4,200 employees. The Proving Ground has its own electrical substation, wastewater treatment facility, on-site emergency services, and medical facility. Every Corvette has been tested at Milford. One of the first car seats designed to protect children in accidents, also called the Infant Love Seat, came out of Milford in 1969. And now the automaker is testing its hands-free driver assistance technology, Super Cruise, hoping to get it to, whip it into shape at the site. GM's president, Mark Royce, even began his career with the company at the Proving Ground. Royce spent his summers working on valve train noise and vibration for V6 engines while he was a student. Anna, is it safe to say that we have a different automotive industry, if not for the Milford Proving Ground?
For sure, yeah. I mean, if you look at this place, you walked through the details of what is encompassed under this umbrella of the Milford Proving Grounds. But the test road services I read are equivalent to over 150 miles of 2-lane highway. So what they do there, obviously, is they test for everything. It's not just driving, but there's labs there, and they put these vehicles through the absolute ringer to just beat the hell out of them to try to figure out what's wrong and how to simulate some of those conditions that would cause problems for their ultimate buyers. And
extreme weather conditions, extreme temperatures. They can pretty much throw anything at these cars there. Yeah,
luckily you could pretty easily ice those roads in Michigan. But besides its auto industry tests, Milford is also known for its work with the defense industry. So I read a report that talked about how Milford tested over 900 military vehicles from all manufacturers to make sure that they would perform in combat as needed during World War II. Milford also had environmental chambers to test vehicles under extreme temperature conditions for the war effort, and they received the Army Navy E Award 5 times.
Okay.
For the work that was done there at Milford. So, while it's got a unique history, I think one of the most important points here is around how it's adapting to what needs to be tested for. We've talked about this in the past, how that's kind of an evolving challenge for automakers. Some of it has to do with user needs and creature comforts, of course, but also a changing climate. So when you look at, as weather gets more extreme, I think it's even more important to take this stuff seriously, even when there are tremendous pressures for these automakers to get these vehicles to market faster. If you look at Ford and Stellantis, the other 2 prongs of this big 3, they have Michigan testing facilities, none as large as this. Mm-hmm. Also, Tesla, I thought this was interesting. Tesla does cold weather testing actually in Alaska, which is how they understand range for their EVs. And then also help you deal with the timeless challenges of how to not get your door handle frozen shut in the wintertime. So everybody's at it, right? But, looking at these individual facilities and this one being probably the best of the best and the history there, it was a pretty interesting story, I thought.
No, I thought it was, one of my biggest takeaways from the story is that sometimes it's okay for companies to take a victory lap. You know, when you have them, celebrate your anniversaries.
Yep.
You know, celebrate your achievements. And it's sometimes they might seem small in scale. You know, it's like, well, you know, we don't have a 4,000 acre proving ground that's been around for 100 years. But, you know, maybe you're celebrating a 20th year anniversary out there. It's worth it to kind of put that out in the industry and let people know a little bit about your history. Andy, what did you think of this story? You know, as part of this victory lap that they were taking, GM just put out a lot of information. It was kind of like a fact dump that needed to be woven together. But I thought it was cool because they have done so many different things at this site.
That was what struck me, is just how it's continued to be so vital. Even, I mean, the amount of change in just the car itself over the past 100 years and its capabilities, and that this place has still been able to grow and be relevant after 100 years is remarkable in and of itself. But I agree with you. It's always nice to see these stories about historic facilities meeting a certain production or year milestone, because that means a few things. And we talk more about factories usually than R&D stuff, but I think it applies here. Basically, it means the company has had long-term sustained success overall and has continued spending money there. It means that it's been a boon to the area for multiple generations, and most importantly, it's been up and operating and not left kind of a post-industrial casualty like we see in the auto industry and in this region, not just Michigan, but all over the upper Midwest in particular. So a well-deserved victory lap, I agree.
Well, and we talk about it all the time. The companies that have long-standing success are the ones that continue to invest in R&D regardless of the economic cycle. Mm-hmm. They trim elsewhere if need be. Some of the other things that came out of this, right? Tested the Hydromatic at Milford, the first mass-produced automatic transmission in the 1930s. Another thing that stood out to me about this is, you know what it has also survived? Changes of leadership. Mm-hmm. Because this is one of those things where I could see a new regime coming in and just being like, you know what? We're not doing the proving ground anymore. It's not my thing. You know, it reminds me of when a new coach or somebody comes in, they just got to clean house. They got to get their own people in, right? Or
no
new
more
management.
Quality control. Yeah, no more testing. Just put them out on the roads.
Sell it. Make it subdivisions. We're gonna make it. We're gonna make make a new one 20 miles down the road. One other sort of fun fact out of this was that while I mentioned GM and Cruise have started or have been testing fully autonomous Chevy Bolts since 2016, I thought it was cool that GM actually tested the first self-driving Chevy back in the 50s. And that one kind of blew my mind. I mean, it was self-driving in that the car followed a cable embedded in a
I was going to say,
track.
you can put self-driving in quotes there. That's fine.
It was self-driving.
They invented trains before then.
Like the old racetracks you used to have.
Yeah.
Where, you needed, it was a great racetrack, but you needed to make sure you had the pin in the track. The other thing was that for whatever reason, I don't know who's fickle about this, but they really stressed that it is Milford Proving Ground. It is not Milford Proving Grounds.
Oh.
It's like there's no S. Do not say the S. And I was just like, easy. Of all the stands to take on that one. But just cool. And honestly, if you have time to go through some of the just historical artifacts that they have published on the GM site, I encourage you to do so because there was just so much more that's come out of here. All right. Our next most popular story. Disgraced ex-Nissan CEO ordered to return luxury yacht. So, who's going to play former Nissan CEO Carlos Ghosn in the movie? Ghosn was once a highly regarded executive, but he was arrested in Japan in 2018 following accusations of misappropriating company funds and violating securities laws. He posted bail and escaped to Lebanon by hiding in a wooden box. He's unlikely to be extradited to be held accountable for his crimes, but Nissan is now trying to recover damages suffered due to Carlos Ghosn's misconduct, and that includes one luxury yacht. A court in the British Virgin Islands says under Ghosn's watch, millions of dollars flowed from Nissan CEO reserve into several intermediaries, some owned by Ghosn himself. Some of the money went to Beauty Yachts, an alleged California shell company owned by his son. The funds were used to buy a luxury yacht registered to Ghosn's wife, Carol. The 121-foot custom-line Nevada 37 yacht has 7 bathrooms, 5 main cabins, and 4 crew cabins. Now it looks like the custom-line Nevada 37 has a new owner, Nissan. The court also ordered Ghosn to pay back $32 million. Ghosn plans to appeal, but Nissan has also filed a $100 million civil suit against Ghosn in Japan, and authorities in France are trying to prove he diverted millions from Renault. Interpol is also watching him, serving Lebanon a red notice, which is a non-binding request that he be arrested, kind of like a please arrest this guy. Ghosn has many irons in one really bad self-inflicted fire, but from multiple reports, it sounds like the biggest thing he's struggling with these days is boredom. Anna, is a sentence of lifelong boredom fitting for a man with such a rap sheet?
I don't know if it is, but it is interesting to consider when you think about what kind of life he's had up to now. To me, this narrative that he's just dying of boredom there in Lebanon is pretty interesting.
It's a good narrative to put out there. Whoa, I don't need to go to jail. I'm super bored with my freedom out here.
Okay, true, but look at it this way. So, the reports I read suggest that because he spent decades jet setting around the world, and honestly probably burned the candle at both ends as an executive. He worked with Renault, Nissan. You have to be a certain type of personality, I think, to thrive on that.
That's true.
He had a lot of power. He had a lot of money. And so I do believe that it's probably very hard that he is now trapped in Lebanon and he can't leave. Secondly, it was pointed out that the yacht in question is docked in Beirut and that it is believed to be unlikely that Lebanon is going to turn anything over at this point. But a report in Autopian said that instead that leaves Ghosn having a yacht that you can't take anywhere, which is pretty indicative of his position overall. They quoted a Radio France report that said the following: Carlos Ghosn's main problem is not money, but boredom. He has traveled all his life around the planet. He's used to meeting people, working, having responsibilities, power, and he finds himself with almost nothing to do in a country 80 kilometers wide and 200 long, in which he has not lived since his childhood. His problem is being stuck here in Lebanon, unquote. So maybe you're burned up by the fact that he's not in jail when the evidence seems to be piling up against him, that maybe his handlings of Renault and Nissan's funds were not legal in many cases, is what it sounds like. But you could probably take comfort in the fact, at least, that he's in the second worst situation for him. I assume the first being jail. Mm-hmm. But yeah. I mean, if he leaves, he gets arrested immediately. So he's in kind of one of those, I don't know, it's kind of a no-win.
Well,
and now he lost his yacht. Now what's he going to do?
He lost his yacht. He needs to learn that with a simple library card, he has the world at his fingertips.
He could travel anywhere.
He just needs...
in a good book.
That's right. So you should probably take a look. Does this not all seem like a new age episode of The Twilight Zone?
Like when the guy gets all those books and then his glasses break?
And his glasses break.
Yeah.
My books.
My books. There was time now.
So who's going to play him in a movie, Anna? And in a pinch, what piece of furniture are you most likely to hide in when you flee to a non-extradition location?
Oh, that box worked for him. So that, I
mean,
don't know, like that
dude.
that exact box?
Yeah. I mean, is that...
I don't think
do
he's
they
that big.
Market it that way?
He looks like he's sort of tiny.
It was
a
It was supposed to be a musical instrument.
Instrument
It was
box.
like a cello, right?
I just queued it up because I was about to touch on that briefly because we don't have time, but it's such an incredible story.
You got to market that. When you put out the catalog, you have to add the bulleted item, fits human well for fleeing country.
Smuggling.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, even if he sells the rights to his story, like you, I think included this point, right? That he had to pay an additional $32 million back to Nissan, not just that's outside of the yacht.
Yeah.
If he is on the hook for all these civil penalties, he's not gonna. I mean, what can he do?
I don't know. I think he calls McConaughey and he's like, "Hey, I need you to play me."
McConaughey. Really?
I just figured if I threw something weird enough out there, I could get her going.
Little hair dye, be all right.
Yeah. Producer Alex is suggesting DeVito, possibly if we had more of a comedic spin on this. And I mean, hey, there's a lot to laugh at on this story.
Yeah, I don't know about DeVito, but
okay. Well, you know what? Maybe we'll give it a think. Andy, did you figure out what the musical instrument case was?
The story I had queued up, I didn't see it at first glance. Suffice to say, it's a large one.
Okay.
It's a large instrument, but that's an incredible story if you want to go back and refresh your memory or learn about it the first time. It's incredible. This story, as always, is a reminder that for any of us, when you're a top executive at a major global manufacturer, you just have to try to live within your means. Don't steal from the company piggy bank. Just a good reminder.
It's a good reminder, yeah.
make it work on a couple mil. I'm sure that's
what I thought of this.
difficult.
Do your kids ever complain to you like we're bored,
Yes.
and then you give them like a much worse option? My mom did this to me all the time. Like, I'm bored. Oh, you could, I don't know, vacuum or something.
Yeah.
Like that feels like what this is. Like, I'm bored. Oh, well, you could go to jail.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I guess I'll stay bored then.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Maybe raking sand is fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there
I
you go.
play
He
this-
just needs a hobby.
Yeah,
he just
I play
needs
this
a
game
hobby.
every day.
Learn an instrument, learn a language.
I mean, I bet wherever he's living now doesn't have 7 bathrooms and likely no quarters for the help.
He should learn whatever instrument was supposed to be in the instrument case,
I mean,
just for the sake of irony.
they say it's so is that a double bass case? A 6
Oh,
foot,
like the big stand-up bass. Yeah, that makes sense.
a
Yeah.
big 6-foot double bass case. However, according to his wife, she told Reuters that reports of that were fiction, which just means didn't work.
Okay, but the guys that helped him get out went to jail.
Yeah,
So
don't do that. That too is frowned upon.
I
I
guess.
believe they call you a third part, like an accessory.
All right.
It's not good.
Okay, I'm just saying.
Trafficker.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought about that when I added the bullet point. Like, it could fit a human to smuggle. And I'm like, wait a second. That is not what I'm getting at.
Nope.
That is not good. Not good. All right. Well, I'm intrigued to see what gets seized next. I don't know. I mean, does he have anything left? Do we know? Like, other assets that are allegedly hidden somewhere?
I mean, I'm sure he does, just given it depends on how fast your various court systems move, I assume, which
Some of these shell companies in the United States. I mean, that
Yeah.
so there's probably.
All right. Looking forward to the next fun fact. Yes? Oh, we're getting hopefully not some more mic issues here. Are we all right? Anna?
Test.
Oh, we're all right.
I'm back.
Sorry. Vanna was out for a minute. She got really upset about the McConaughey
a
comment.
lot of cursing.
Yeah.
All right. Our most popular story this week was a bit of a surprise. Baxter closes its biggest factory amid Hurricane, is it Helene or Helen? Is it Helene? Yeah. Baxter closes its biggest factory amid Hurricane Helene flooding in North Carolina. AccuWeather estimates a total damage and economic loss from Hurricane Helene to be between $225 billion and $215 billion. Amongst the wreckage is medtech company Baxter International, which was forced to close its largest manufacturing facility due to flooding in North Carolina. The company's factory in Marion, North Carolina, employs more than 2,500 people. The site primarily makes intravenous and peritoneal dialysis solutions. Baxter is the largest manufacturer of these products in the United States. The company is working with local, state, and federal officials to assess the extent of the damage and implement a plan to bring the plant back online as quickly as possible. Baxter CEO Joe Almeida says remediation efforts are already underway, and Baxter will spare no resource, human or financial, to resume production and help ensure patients and providers have the products they need. Ahead of the storm, Baxter implemented its hurricane preparedness plan, which included employee evacuations and moving products to higher ground or secure storage. However, the heavy rain and storm surge breached a levee and water has infiltrated the site. Bridges accessing the site have also been damaged. Baxter is trying to minimize potential disruptions. The company is leveraging its global manufacturing network to help mitigate potential supply impact. Andy, it sounds like they not only got out in time, but at least had a plan to make sure everything wasn't a total loss. Still, we're likely to see some supply chain disruption from this one.
Yeah, this obviously is not ideal, but this is a lot better than you could say for other companies who are in the middle of this tragedy that continues to play out as we speak here. So this company's IV fluids are used. It's an enormous company, and these IV fluids are used across the country, many of our hospitals. And as one official succinctly put it this week, you can't really run a hospital without IV bags. So, then we as a whole have a little more experience with supply chain hiccups than we did a few years ago for obvious reasons. So you'd hope that people would be a little more experienced with how to address potential shortages, how to reroute things, that sort of. Maybe they have more in supply, just to be on the safe side. But that same report also noted that the medical supply chain is already stressed. We've dealt with drug shortages in particular. They've been a huge headline earlier this year. So I don't know. I didn't see a timetable off the top. I don't know if they have one, but you just have to hope that their contingency planning works and that they can get back up and running as soon as possible, as they said.
Yeah, for as bleak as it looks for other operations, it looks like they do have a plan that'll help them get through it. And Anna, part of that is what stood out to me, the idea of having this hurricane preparedness plan. We've covered previous stories about volcanic disruption plans, tornado plans. And, it is a harsh reality of the world moving forward that you need to have these plans in place, however unlikely you might think they are, just to protect yourselves and your employees.
Yeah. Having a disaster response plan is a very critical component, I think, to any business. And there is some scary data to back that up. If you look at what FEMA says, this is according to FEMA, 40% of businesses who close due to a disaster never reopen.
Wow. That is high.
Is high. WCA Technologies estimated that the average cost of downtime due to a business interruption for a SMB, so smaller medium business, is $8,000 to $74,000 per hour. As you mentioned, Baxter, I would not consider an SMB. I would assume that figure is higher.
Yeah.
And then there are also many estimates out there on the percentage of companies who have a disaster response plan in place, and none of them are actually very great. Some say about half of companies don't, and one I found even said 75% do not have a plan in place.
Really?
So when you take that in the context of what we're looking at in North Carolina and Tennessee, that's really scary stuff. It sounds like Baxter, as you guys also mentioned, is in a decent position with some forethought going into this plan. And even so, you have to consider how bad it is for floodwaters to permeate what I assume is more than likely a clean room site.
Yep.
That's not a quick fix. That's not like getting some shop vacs in there and, that's the real deal.
It's a lot of remediation.
It is. And, Baxter being a global company means that they have some depth to hopefully absorb some of the results of the shutdown. But many companies, again, do not, And I think, you have to think about how much worse that would be to not have any kind of plan in place. And that's the reality for so many of these companies that are enduring the aftermath of this horrible storm. You mentioned this being kind of unforeseen for a lot of businesses that were in the path of it. And I agree with that. You heard a lot in the coverage that places like Asheville, for example, were considered for a long time climate havens. they were less likely than other areas to experience these extreme weather events, especially the effects of a hurricane.
I mean, they're hundreds of miles inland.
Hundreds of miles
in the mountains.
People in the mountains, people just were not expecting that to happen there. And, you for good reason, you can't blame anybody for that. I think this probably served as a wake-up call to many businesses who might characterize their locations much in the same way. Like they have an idea of what their threats are. Mm-hmm. Maybe that threat calculator is changing, and maybe it's changing rapidly. And so not only is it about looking at just disaster response in general, but maybe incorporating some other very unlikely scenarios into that planning process that you did not think that you had to account for in the past.
No, we've covered a number of white papers that have come out on that particular subject. And I know that Jeff has covered them as well. But sometimes it sounds crazy, right? That you need to have these brainstorming sessions. But basically, you need to get a bunch of principals in a room and just start saying, what happens if a hurricane hits us? And then everybody in the room laughs because we're 300 miles away from the coast. And it's like, okay, but what if? And then you just have to kind of follow those threads of very unlikely and just put something down on paper in some sort of management software system, just so it exists. And so that way, regardless of how unlikely it is, you and your staff have wrapped your heads around it. And in the highly unlikely chance that happens, you have at least the bones of something. You have somewhere to go. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It reminds me of just old school fire drills back at school, right? You didn't know much, but you knew that you either went for the door or the window. And they had like a simple path drawn in every room. One thing that also stood out to me in this was that, this is a company that is dealing with its workforce and its biggest factory just in a devastating conditions. And it's unfortunate that they need to then address the likely financial ding that this is going to cause to the bottom line. They kind of go through everything they're doing. And then at the end of the story, they make sure to note Baxter is going to continue to provide updates as additional information becomes available and provide an update estimated timing when they're going to resume production. They're also working to restore manufacturing operations. And, once the company fully assesses the damage, it's going to be in a better position to estimate just how bad it's going to be this quarter. And I think that when you're talking about everything this company has to go through right now, I think that people can understand it's going to have an impact on the financials, and maybe that doesn't need to be top of mind. But I understand that's Baxter's a public company, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyways, maybe we should up our disaster preparedness coverage, just in terms of
yeah, probably.
We joked about it like it was probably more than a year ago now about the volcano preparedness plan, but. I don't know, you never know.
Yep.
You never know.
All right. Well, before we jump into, in case you missed it, the stories that maybe weren't as popular on our websites, Industrial Equipment News and Manufacturing.net, but still stand to make a big impact on the industry going forward, we have a word from our new sponsor, Sickich. This week's episode is brought to you by Sickich. Supply chain challenges like inventory shortages and late deliveries from suppliers have exposed weaknesses, shrinking profits for 93% of companies in the past 5 years. We are at a turning point. Businesses can modernize their supply chain management or scramble to survive when something goes wrong. This new report will help you unlock 7 key areas of supply chain management that enterprises can leverage to retain their market share and stay ahead of disruptions. Download it now. All right. In case you missed it, stories not as popular on the sites, but might have a big impact on the industry going forward. Andy, what do you have for us this week?
Mine begins a couple of years ago with a couple of college students drinking in their dorm room.
Awesome.
Rather than play video games or cards like normal people. They were engineering students, so they started talking about a lecture that went into how they were people in Colombia were scientists in Colombia, I assume, were turning banana fibers, waste from that industry, into construction materials. So one thing leads to another, and they decide to start evaluating byproducts from the beer industry in Germany for the same kind of thing. And when that turned out to actually work, they started their own company, and it's called For now, it's called Hopfon, which is a play on the German word for hops, the beer ingredient. And it takes the parts of the hops plant that aren't used to make beer and converts them into building boards, insulation, acoustic panels. Eventually, they want to turn it into a type of drywall. Obviously, this is a good story about a novel way to go about product development. And it's good for a couple of reasons. One, it addresses waste streams in both food and beverage and in construction. And I sort of feel like it indirectly redeems a fair amount of my college afternoons and or evenings.
Yeah.
Because if this could come from that, well,
Yeah.
we should all maybe have done that when we were in college, just in case.
Well, everybody did that in college, but then they pursued it. You know,
Yeah.
everyone like sat around, or like you would have the, you know what, $1 million idea of the day. We're going to make houses out of beer.
Yep.
And then there was a dramatic, like a pregnant pause. He's like, but wait a minute. And then they just did it.
Yep.
You know, we hear that story all the time. Like we did the story on Renewwell, where they essentially did the same thing. Like, what if we repurposed all old oil wells? And then they just kept doing it, found a business out of it. I don't know. I thought this was an incredible story, and really cool that it's like, you know, the house that beer built.
Yeah.
You know, it's I could see that people being interested in that. And I mean, not just hops, but we talk about the impact the cannabis industry and the hemp industry could have on construction materials. There's a lot of incredible opportunity out there for some more sustainable construction.
Yeah, we've gone into a lot of stories about using biomass for various other industrial applications. So it's good to add another one to the list.
Yeah. Anna, you have to be encouraged that we have found another valuable asset in the beer manufacturing process.
I came up with a great idea in college as well, and I never sold it to anyone. So do you guys want to hear what it is?
I definitely
Absolutely.
do.
And if anyone's listening, you're welcome. It is, if anyone's listening from Frito-Lay, this is for you. It's called Cheetos to Go. And it is Cheetos in a snack-sized bag that comes with a single glove
Oh, all right.
to prevent you from getting Cheeto fingers.
Yeah.
And I just thought that would be a good way to package it. I would.
No.
I mean, like, what if you're in the car on your way
Yeah.
to a business meeting? Do you ever choose Cheetos? No.
No, never. Like
Too many
I
barriers.
like Cheetos to go. You know what? But I'm thinking more. I like Cheetos to go with a tiny glove for kids because you get that. But we recently had a birthday for my youngest, and we have so many bags of Cheetos left over because you get his favorite snack.
Yeah.
He's like, I want to eat Cheetos in the car, and it's just like that will never.
There are a
happen.
number of reasons
Yeah,
that
I'm
cannot
sorry,
happen.
I'll be super careful. I'm like, no, you won't. You'll be careful on the first one. I love this idea, Anna.
All right.
And even if, come on, we are in peak marketing gimmick
Yeah.
mode as a culture.
Just put a glove in there.
Cheetos to go. Just put a glove in it. Like, so do you see this as like a wrapped up little plastic glove? Is
Yeah.
this more of a rolled up?
Any kind. I mean, all you're doing is trying to create a barrier between your hand and the dust.
I like it.
I think
like
it could work. I think it could work.
I definitely think
Yeah.
it could work. Anna, what is your, in case you missed it this week?
I selected a story about Britain closing its last coal-fired electricity plant. So they closed their last coal-fired plant on Monday, which ended 142 years of coal-generated electricity in the nation that sparked the Industrial Revolution. So the shutdown made Britain the first of the G7 countries to fully phase out coal. But they had some really crazy data in here. So if you look back in 1990, which I know was a while back, it doesn't feel that long ago to me, but
Yeah.
in 1990, coal provided about 80% of Britain's electricity. By 2012, it had fallen to 39%, and by 2023, it stood at just 1%. More than half of Britain's electricity now comes from renewable sources such as wind and solar, and the rest is from natural gas and nuclear energy. So, one of the deputy chief executive of the trade body Energy UK, Dara Vyas, said, so to get to this point in just a decade later, with 10 years ago, the coal being the leading source of power for the country. Just an incredible achievement. And you can see why people are, pretty impressed with that pace of progress. And I think if you look at the U.S. for perspective, albeit we are a much larger country, we still get about 17% of our electricity from coal. But if you lump in all fossil fuel derived power, that's about 60%. That's a lot of natural gas in there. 21% of our power comes from renewable energy. And so for a country like the United States, I think, who values global leadership and like being the best and first at everything.
Yeah.
Get competitive, man. They can hang this over our head a little bit. That's tremendous progress. And I think we could be doing better than we are. I know it's a very knotted issue, both politically and, from an infrastructure standpoint. But I think that, we could be moving a little bit faster here and take Britain's example here.
How soon until it becomes a Bitcoin mining operation? Is it already up and running?
The coal-fired plants?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's just,
David.
that's what we see. It's these typically plants that are built for energy hungry operations. They're just like, somewhere there's a Bitcoin titan, rolling his mustache going, I see an investment, an opportunity. No, it is an incredible achievement. Do you think this is enough, Andy, to get the U.S. maybe a little bit more competitive on a global scale?
I don't.
Okay.
I wish I did.
Yeah.
But I don't.
But you're a realist.
It's if there's room for optimism here, it's that really all it would take is political will. You can do it. Probably quicker than you think. And it just takes people having the right priorities about what they want the energy economy and their overall world to look like. So
yeah,
I think there's that. So if I was a bummer on the opening part of that question, I'm just trying to be a little more light on the back end.
Massage it a little bit.
Yeah. Listen. All you gotta.
If you have the political will.
We have solved problems as a society before. It's happened, and it can be done again.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, that's really why I highlighted this, because of how quickly they were able to do this, just because they decided to do it.
Yep.
And for us, it's just been a lot of going forwards and backwards a little bit at a time.
And it's
a lot of special interests, and
there is the other piece of this, which is that there were people who had jobs, and it's been slowly declining, just like it has been here. The share of coal's share of the jobs market, and it's important to take those people into consideration and not use them as a blunt force instrument for political ends, but actually give them options. Because in the long run, this is where the jobs are. They're not in coal. They're in whatever other alternative energy options you want to put on the table. That's where they are. They're not in coal. So it just need to hone in on that point rather than play politics with it.
I would just say maybe not right now. Maybe this is a late November sort of thing that we see readdressed on the U.S. political landscape.
It'll be a little quiet on that front, I think, for a few weeks here.
Yeah, no one's talking about this now. No, we have much bigger fish to fry in the next few weeks. There's a lot of really, really, really important things being discussed, and a lot of really, really dumb things being discussed. So
there are, and it's when it comes to coal in particular, it's one of those where when you hear the candidates discussing their stances on energy, and you're trying to read between the lines, you're just like, what are you really saying? I think you're really saying nothing. Yep, nope. It's just like a jumble of buzzwords. Okay, there's nothing there.
Got to stay on message. It's campaign season.
That's right. All right. Mine, in case you missed it, we all kind of went renewable a little bit. And that was completely by accident. But mine, in case you missed it this week, was about how Blue Polymers just broke ground on a new recycled plastics plant. Because this comes up all the time. Yes, we have a plastics problem. There are ways to recycle plastics, but no one's really figured it out. No one's really doing it. And I mean, I know that's an exaggeration, but this one in particular, this is a great example of, something that we could see a lot more of. Blue Polymers last week broke ground on a new recycled plastics production facility in Buckeye, Arizona. It's a 162,000 square foot plant that's expected to create 60 jobs and open next year. The factory is going to specialize in recycled polyethylene, which is found in milk jugs and laundry detergent bottles, and polypropylene, used in consumer packaging like yogurt cups. The plastics are going to be processed into high-quality, drop-in recycled plastic solutions for the packaging industry. Like I said, this is a huge problem. I think that we're a little bit more sensitive to it because we are covering it every day. But as a result of our coverage, anytime, it wasn't we do bi-weekly recycling. And so today was not recycling, and the garbage can is just overflowing with plastic bottles, especially we're a milk-heavy household right now. Phoenix-based Republic Services is a joint venture partner in Blue Polymers, and they're developing regional polymer center plastics recycling facilities. This is going to be a network of centers, the first in North America, according to the company, that's going to make high-quality, color-sorted recycled plastics that come directly from Republic's national curbside collection operations. So this entire operation is kind of really putting together the supply chain. Each Republic Services Polymer Center is going to be paired with one of these Blue Polymer facilities, and we've seen demand for domestic recycled plastics rise, mostly due to ESG commitments and other legislation. Many CPG companies are pledging to incorporate more recycled content into their packaging designs, and it has to come from somewhere. 5 states have implemented minimum recycled content requirements for single-use plastics. This facility has an annual production target of more than 300 million pounds of recycled resins. And this is a project that I wanted to see, and I want it to succeed. And right now, there's a lot of good surrounding the project. So that's why I wanted to pull it out. And I don't know if you had a chance to check out this story, but it seems like it checks a lot of boxes, answers a lot of concerns that we have when it comes to recycled plastics and our plastic dependency in the U.S.
Yeah, I mean, I have gotten over the years to be like pretty down on plastic recycling as an industry. I mean, like it's
rightfully so.
Yeah, it's really been a disappointing trajectory for that. But I do think that the ultimate solution is we need to use less plastic. Mm-hmm. I do not want to see the concept of plastic recycling to just be abandoned because it's got problems now. Mm-hmm. So if there's a better way to do it, and they can create some sort of curbside supply that people will participate in and fuels this operation, then great. I would like to see what happens there. I will withhold my judgment and see what happens.
Your judgment is loud and clear.
It is being withheld.
Loud and clear.
It has been withheld.
Well, I think your judgment and your skepticism, rightfully so, right?
Yeah.
Plastic recycling efforts have, by and large, been lip service until now. And I think, I don't know, we finally had the viral video that broke the camel's back. There can only be too many plastic recycling scandals. And then they're like, oh, you know what? We're really going to have to do something about this. Mm-hmm. Andy, does your skepticism match Anna's, or are you a little bit more positive on this? Worse? More down on it?
I wouldn't say more. No, I think the solution lies elsewhere other than, if I'm reading this right, and I just got to this like 10 minutes before we came in here.
Yeah.
But if I'm reading this right, it's kind of like a recycle it once type deal. Okay. And that certainly is a help, but I don't know that it's the answer, considering we still continue to churn out more and more plastics every year. So I am still, it's kind of both. I'm hopeful this works.
Yeah.
But I'm also pretty sure the answer lies elsewhere ultimately. So, but, there's got to be, if we're going to address these things, you got to go at it from multiple fronts. So
try a lot of things.
Yeah. So I hope it works. I am in the same boat. I hope it works.
So instead of this thing leading to a thing, it's just going to lead to something wholly different.
Oh, maybe they come up with a infinitely recyclable plastic or something. I'm, in addition to not being an engineer, I'm also not a chemist. So I'm not real sure how practical that is, but you never know.
The thing that died on the vine.
The thing that leads to nothing.
Yeah, the thing to nowhere. All right, before we get out of here, let's do our final thoughts this week. Anna, what's your final thought?
So on Sunday, my family and I went apple picking. We took the kids apple picking, which I was putting off because it's been so hot. And I feel like we need to be wearing hoodies for that. But anyway, we just pulled the pin and went to the orchard, and it was hot. And it was still a very fun experience. I love doing that with my kids, and they get super into it. But that night, I think with all of my thoughts like willed fall into existence. And the next morning I woke up and it was 45 and windy. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, what have I done? I had so many regrets. So I don't know. It's weird. This weather, this season has been so strange, but I feel like if it stays warm for much longer, I'm not going to be able to adapt.
Yeah, because we're not going to have that bridge. It's just going to go foot of snow.
Immediately. And then I people say that like, oh, you grow up here, you get used to it. It's the Midwest, or you get used to the cold, but that's not true. That's
more like you get dead to it.
Yeah, you acknowledge it.
Yeah.
But that's
there it is.
Yep.
You get used to it, you appreciate it, and then by mid-January, you're like, okay, this can end now.
You hate it. Yeah. It's because you're right. The first couple of snowfalls, you're like, oh, it's so beautiful.
So peaceful.
It's a Christmas miracle.
Yeah.
And then as soon as the holidays are over, I'm like, forget this.
Yeah, the first black slush and roadside accidents that leaves you in traffic for 4 hours. You're like, oh yeah, no. It's a no. So my final thought is that my family has been consuming just an awful lot of pizza lately. And it is mostly because of ever since my kid's birthday party, I just bought too many pizzas. We had 12 left over. So then it was like, it was the only thing we knew. And so after consuming that much pizza, it's like, what are we going to do? Do pizza. And it's just been going on. And I think we finally killed it this week because we went and ordered the good pizza. Because, I'm like, all right, sometimes you got to step up your game. And we ordered a chicken pesto pizza that was, for the adults, and a mac and cheese pizza for the kids. And, the adults, it turned out that we really liked that pesto chicken pizza, and it kind of went pretty quick. Mm-hmm. So I grabbed a slice of the mac and cheese pizza, and I bit down into it and hit the hardest piece I've ever tasted in a pizza. And I'm like, my God, what kind of bad pasta is this? And then as I'm chewing it, I'm like, oh, this is not pasta. It's either a huge chunk of glass or plastic. And I pulled it out. I sent a couple of photos to Eric, producer Eric, to see if he could pull those up, because this piece of plastic was massive. It was at least 2 inches big. And what was disgusting was it was in this was the piece I was about to give my kid.
It was like under the mac?
Yeah, it was cooked into the pizza. Oh. And I was a touch irate, but I have learned that it's better to kill them with kindness than scream at them. So I was trying to reason with the manager, just, hey, wanted to tell you there's a giant plastic shard in your pizza. He's like, oh yeah, that hasn't happened in a long time. I'm like, what? That's no good. That is no good. And he's just like, yeah, I'll just refund your money. I'm like, I need you to care a little bit more, because I almost fed a giant sharp plastic shard to my babies, and your indifference is murdering my soul. And he's like, oh yeah, no, you know what? This has never happened before, and it's unacceptable. And I'm like, but you just said it hasn't happened in a long time. He's like, oh, well, yeah, it hasn't. But, those plastic things, they get beat up a lot, right? So there's the plastic shard. The other photo has a fork in it for scale. It's like basically the head of a fork. And I know. And it was just like such a large foreign object to be in my mouth so suddenly. But
whoa.
Yeah, so I was disappointed in the customer service. And then I was also disappointed in his just lack of caring. Like, yeah, there's the giant plastic piece. And I'm like, do you want to see it? He's like, no. I know, like, we do all of our food prep in these plastic containers, and they kind of get slammed around. You know what it's like to get good help these days. They're slamming them around, and they're going too fast. I'm like, but they can't bake it into the food. And his just indifference murdered me. And I think pizza's dead to me, even though I just ordered like 20 pizzas from my neighbors this morning. Fundraisers.
That's how you kicked yourself of pizza?
Yeah.
Is just...
No, it was, I think
plastic?
Yeah, no, I think I'm finally done with pizza now as a result of this. And I'm certainly done with this company. And it was just a good reminder of, even if you're having a bad day at the office, customer service is still a very important part of it. And as a result of this this middle manager's indifference, like we're just never going.
That is a new level of apathy. Like that's heretofore unheard of by me, is just being like, well,
Yeah. Well, and he's like, I'll send you a gift certificate. I'm like, well, and then I'm like, what more could I get out of it? Could I get some shirts?
I feel like I just cut bait at that point and be like, this person is clearly checked out and beyond help.
Yeah, he definitely was. And it was, sometimes you just need a little acknowledgement. And I knew I wasn't going to get that. And it was just, my family could hear me in the other room. And, I could just hear, no, Daddy will be right back. He's talking to the nice man. And it was just that escalating tone. And you're like, all right, just shut it down. And I just, if you have bad customer service out there, whether or not you're the customer or you are the company, it goes a long way to just, apologize, try to make good, and not just be like, happens. Sorry, bro. Andy, what's your final thought this week?
I was concerned I was going to steal you were going to steal my thunder on this, but you decidedly did not. I did not have any plastic pizza lately.
Okay.
No,
it's terrible.
Most of us in the production studio here got to go to the longest running chili cook-off in the state of Wisconsin last weekend.
Yes.
I missed last year because I was traveling, so it was good to get back to it. We made an excellent chili, as usual. Did not win, as usual, but...
politics.
Yeah. I don't know if people are picturing... like a team building exercise. That's really not what this is. It's everyone it's fun, but it's not company team building. It's decidedly show up weird early on a Saturday and have a really, really good time.
But it's like, it backdoors into team building, it was one, so we have a lot of people from the office that participate, and then we have a couple of people that don't work with us. And it was kind of funny because one of those individuals stepped aside and looked at, so our theme was Oktoberfest. We had a brat chili. We were hanging pretzel necklaces from the tents. I don't know if producer Eric can pull up one of the photos, but one of our teammates just stepped out.
Be careful.
Started looking at everybody, and he's just like, you know what? It's like you guys do marketing or something. He's like, you guys did a good job. It's like, yeah, you got to stay, you really got to go for it. But sorry, I totally forgot about our magnificent chili win.
Well, I mean, if you're derailed by an enormous slice of plastic and subsequent apathy about plastic, that's hard to come back from. I get it.
I know. We should have brought in the award. Just held it up right here.
Yep.
Chili winners 4 years running.
Not for chili. Just
chili. We
team
won.
theme. We're a dynasty for team theme.
Yes, we won at the chili competition. Let's not go talk about what we're not.
Who didn't win what? Whatever.
Yeah, no. Trophy's a trophy. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it was, you're right, though. It is. But, I mean, talk about it being hot at the orchard. Oh, my God. Last year, it was like 90 degrees at chili. Oof. This year, it was perfect. And actually found out that I might want to learn how to play the accordion, because that is some of the most fun I've ever had trying to play an accordion. Mm-hmm. Just trying to figure it out.
Okay.
Producer Alex, of course, started playing hot cross buns in 2 seconds.
Yep.
But we'll get there. Sorry in advance for when I'm just taking my 15-minute break.
Boy, I like that. Just going outside. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, take it outside for sure.
Going right outside the door, outside your office. All right, well, before we get out of here, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You can also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. If you want to email the podcast, you can reach any of us at Andy, David, or Anna at IN.com with email the podcast in the subject line. You can also email Jeff at IN.com with, why you fish so much now, Jeff, in the subject line. You can also subscribe to us on YouTube at IN Magazine, or subscribe to our daily newsletter. Make sure you get it delivered to your inbox first. All right, for Andy Zoll and Anna Wells, I'm David Manti. This is the Today in Manufacturing podcast, and we will see you next week.